I don't have much to say other than just an introduction that I think I just want to go back a little bit, review kind of where we are and see what we need to do next. But you think about what was different about this nation a couple hundred years ago. And really, you could argue about whether we have a democracy, which some people say, or a constitutional republic, which we don't really have either. The only thing really that our founders bequeathed us that is unequivocal is that they bequeathed us no excuses, such that whatever it is that we have in this country, however we're living, it's by our choice, and we don't have anybody else to blame but ourselves for the way we're living today. Because, while other nations can blame a king or some kind of oppressive tyrant that doesn't allow them the ability to vote or to choose or to go to public meetings, and they call all the shots from someplace in a centralized location protected by armies, we've been voting for this stuff. And over 90% of us have been voting pretty much the same way all the time for the last 100 years. And it's really been about 150 years ago that we've sort of decided to divide ourselves up into two groups. And it's not, it's not even just, by ourselves. Yes, we do tend to divide ourselves into, we're gay or we're straight, we're a woman or we're a man, we're black or we're white. We always seem to have one side or the other as if there really are just two choices to make in anything. And why is that? Because we decided some time ago we're going to be either a Democrat or we're going to be a Republican, and that's just the way it is. And every day I hear that, you really need to be pragmatic. You really should run as a Democrat or a Republican, and we really can save the Republican Party, and that, the Republicans have so many good people in it, and look at all the good signs and all of this. I've been hearing this my whole life. As long as I've been around, and as far as I can read in the historical record, it's always been like this. And if you look back far enough to see what George Washington was warning us about, it was exactly about this, the power of factions. Sort of like these false idols that we erect to make absurd propositions around. The idea that there really are two parties and that there is such a thing as a Republican Party and there's such a thing as a Democratic Party. We really should be taking a stand against that. But how do you do that? How do you fight the idea that most of us have kind of divided us, into two different distinct groups that, whether we see ourselves as man or a woman or black or white or whatever, at some point on election day, we decide we're either Democrat or Republican. And because of that, because most of us, well over 90% of us, almost all the time, everywhere you go for the last 100 some odd years, because we've been doing this, what do the Democrats and Republicans have to fear? Why would they change when they're in the catbird seat as long as every election cycle we essentially say attaboy to the powers that be? How do we fix this notion in people's heads that we have to choose between Democrats and Republicans? Because I don't know anybody who likes this right now. I have not met anybody who actually sees, they could be the most fierce partisan. They could be on the payroll of the Republican Party. And I don't know anybody, and I know lots of Republicans, I don't know any Republican who says, I love my party. I think they're doing a good job. I think we need to keep doing this. If you're working for a company or you're in a fraternity, you're always going to find some kind of parts of disagreement, and at some point you might decide to leave them. But for 100 some odd years now, we have been devoted to the Democrats and Republicans. And now, we can have a discussion about ideology all you want. We can talk about socialism versus libertarianism. We can talk about, limited government, constitutional rule of law. I think all of you guys know that I love constitutional rule of law. It's not that I love the constitutions, but the whole idea that we limit government to what's written, that we can read it, we can all agree to it, and we can hold them to that leash. I love that. But personally, while I love that, I know it's irrelevant right now. Because what we have, instead of constitutional rule of law, instead of even socialism or authoritarianism, we've got a few people, and they're not even Americans, all of them, who are calling the shots. And it's not like there's any secret about this. We've been warned by presidents. Over a dozen presidents now, presidents of the United States who have reached the top of the visible order of power, they've been warning us about the powers behind the power since the very beginning. Whether you're talking about Andrew Jackson saying he's going to rout out the den of vipers, or whether you're talking about, was it just yesterday when we had the anniversary of Eisenhower's military-industrial speech, or whether it's Kennedy's Men Behind the Curtain, secret societies. We've been warned forever that we have a system that has been falling into corruption. Even Woodrow Wilson, one of the people that helped make it this way, as bad as it is, he talked about how corrupt our government has become. And it's corrupt from the bottom up and from the top down. You've got from the precinct committee people who are working for a candidate because he knows that that's going to mean contracts for his business and it's going to mean a summer job on the highway crew for his son, all the way up to the lobbyists, half of whom are there on K Street just to arrange special tax deals for their customers. When you realize how corrupt this whole system is, it's not even about the isms we try to arrange, like, oh, President Obama's a communist, Andy Horning's a libertarian. So what? We've got a crime ring for a government right now. Now, what are we going to do about this? As long as we don't understand what the issue is, we're not addressing it properly. I just talked to a group just about an hour ago that it was focusing on all kinds of tentacles. They were looking at all little roots of issues, little branches of issues, but they were not seeing the monster. They were not seeing they were looking at symptoms but not the disease. You know, we've got so many cases where we subdivide things into individual issues, and I want to know how you stand on abortion, and I want to know how you stand on, this amendment or this proposal, when we're not really understanding, guys, we've got a crime ring. We've got these elites that don't even care about our country particularly. They don't care what form of government we have. They're running the show. Our form of money, our currency, which wars we declare, it's not up to us until we decide it's going to be us. And we have to make a decision we've not made yet. I mean, as people, we've been voting for the same groups forever, and we've got to do something different. So I think what we need to do is kind of strategize a little bit about, first of all, how do we articulate to people what the problem really is? How do we let people know that what our presidents have been warning us about is something we should be concerned about? How do we let people know that, the historical impetus behind these constitutions to restrain government down to a few things is really a good idea at all?